as soon as it shows up. There it is. Okay, here we go. Yeah, there we go. All right. So let me just tag you. Give people a second to get in. And down. There we go. Yeah, gotcha. Right. Here. Yeah. Turn the sound off. That way I can see some of the comments. Okay. Well, let's kick it off. We're fashionably 4 minutes late, which is about par for the course. This is the first show for us today of 3. It's going to be a good day. It'll be a great day. And this is a new friend that we have in the house, was recommended to us by a mutual friend, beloved sister, that's been doing work with them. And so she said, hey, can you they're popping fireworks out here in Mexico. Can you get them on and have a chat? I think you guys will get along real well. I said, absolutely, 100%. That's how this works. So Peter, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming in and sharing space with us and honoring us with your presence. I'm looking forward to get to know you and see what you're into and see where you've been and what you're doing. I always love to ask this question. Did you have a wake-up experience, or have you always been this strange?
Good question. Thank you for having me, first of all, and I appreciate the introduction and everything. Have I always been this way? No. I had my moments. I had a near-death experience when I was 20. I had some childhood experiences that I didn't have anyone to share with. So looking back, and traveling back in time, gathering it all up, I kind of connecting the dots, over the years, But basically, I had a near-death experience when I was 20, and I was in a coma for 10 days in Denmark, where I'm from, and I saw the silver lining to my light body. I had, experiences while I was in the coma, and I brought that with me, and I made big life changes after coming out of that, and moved continents, moved countries, and started a different life, basically, like many lifetimes within one life,
Right.
And that just the kind of like the leading into the next chapters, unfolding, starting over, creating a new foundation, learning, activating grid points, which is something I've been doing. I mean, we all do, when we travel a lot, and holding grid keeping frequencies, so I've been traveling a lot. I believe it's close to 40 countries or something around the world, and always been guided to go where I'm at, including where I'm at now. I'm in Texas at the moment. Especially the last 15 years, it's been much more conscious. That's when I also changed careers again for the third time in this lifetime, and became a light worker again, starting doing that, and made drastic life changes, following my heart, learning what that meant, and integrating, activating, embodying more and more of my sovereign being, and learning my history, learning, where that all came from, past lifetimes, elements, DNA that was hidden, that was not activated at the time, but now is activated. We have to reach these grid points. We have to reach certain frequency bandwidths to access these frequencies and these light codes, and that's the magic behind it, like going through that inner experience, personal experience, day in, day out, like that's really been magical. And obviously that put me in a position to share and mentor others, assist others, and now I've been doing this full time for 8 years or something.
Okay.
For a living, First I did 7 years of traveling, doing all the shows around the country and cities, and every weekend, which was fun. I had offices in Austin. I had 3 different offices at once. Yeah. And,
So are you Austin based? Is that where you're at now?
No, I'm in West Texas now, in Midland, actually. I
Oh, you're
was
in
in
Midland.
Austin for a little
Wow.
while, and
How
was
do
in
you
San
end up in
Antonio.
Midland? I'm from Texas, and I know it like the back
You
of my hand.
are?
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't
I'm
know.
originally,
Okay.
yeah. I'm in Mexico. I've been in Mexico for a little over a year, but I'm going back next month.
Oh, beautiful.
Um,
Well, a friend of mine, from Austin, actually, an angel friend of mine, moved here because of circumstances, and I came out to assist and decided that my daughter was going off to college, so then I didn't have to stay in California anymore, where I was for a couple of years, the last couple of years.
okay.
And then it's like Texas just attracts me because of, it is the Tao, and Dove, and of the heart of the dove,
Yes.
in the bigger picture. So the energy
That's
is just
is that the
magical.
Book of Enoch? Is that
It
or
is.
okay,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah, that whole area. I lived in Arkansas for 2 years too. Uh, just that was like in 2020, 2021, 22. Um, and yeah, so a lot of that information came to me. Um, it's a special area. The Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and then up into the Four Corner states. I mean, there's a lot going on there, and I
Yeah.
think if you're in that area, there's a reason for it, as you know. There's a reason that you end up in Midland. Now you were saying that okay, you had three, you moved continents, changed your lifestyle. You had three different professions, so to speak. You said you've been doing this for the last 8 years. You're the energy work, the healer type of work, right? Practitioner. Uh, and you said that the 7 years prior to that, you were doing all the shows. What type of were you doing? Like metaphysical expos, and what were you doing at them?
Well, prior to that, I was a sound engineer actually in Hollywood, and before that, I was a pastry chef in Denmark. So I kind of like changed careers, like totally different areas. But it all kind of tied it all together, like sound and behind the scenes and seeing illusion, seeing, how it's all made. And then coming into doing my spiritual work, there was a couple of years where I was doing a little bit of both. So I was doing part-time sound work and then I was doing the spiritual work.
Okay.
So 8 years ago, that's when I started doing the shows as well. So I did several years of before COVID, where I did the shows and I worked in some shops and then I got offices in Austin. And then
Now this was all directed to your healing work. Is that correct?
yes,
Okay, I got you.
100% like for a living.
Right,
So,
right.
and I've been doing that for 8 years now. Like that's my only job, and was able to sustain myself doing that, and grow and attract, and of course my personal journey along the way, align with that my belief systems and so forth, my frequency, which I constantly obviously work on, and do podcasts. I done workshops. I
Mm.
done, you know, so many interviews like this one, and many different shows, different venues, and getting the word out there and getting to meet people that way. I think that's really beneficial, and beautiful. People can feel your vibration, your frequency, like something we work on every day,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this it's interesting hearing everybody's stories over the years. As I started doing this 2017. So similar timeline.
Yeah.
But and there seems to be quite a bit of consistency in the people's retelling of their story in terms of just like the general template. Yours is a little bit different in that you had that out of body at 20, and that information. Although we've had plenty of people that was way before 2012, before when they got the first hit, and a lot of these people have been waiting a long time for this time to come to the earth. Did you have precognition of this time coming to the earth when there would be an expansion of the collective consciousness as we're seeing in the world today?
Yes, I would say I did. But the way it showed up as a kid, it was like I didn't know anyone to share with it. And I also knew I could physically feel there was stuff I didn't have access to for a number of years, because I wasn't activated yet.
Right, right.
I hadn't reached those milestones yet. So something I could feel, I don't have access to it yet. So then when I further down the road did the soul retrieval and opened up those aspects of myself fully again and reconnected with those aspects of myself, that's when everything came online, my psychic abilities and so forth, But yes, to answer your question, I did feel that, and I have numerous occasions of where I saw stuff in the future, then it happened, you could say premonitions, but it's like there was things I saw years. There's an example here. It's like you can see these prepaid credit cards and stuff today. Way before that came online, I thought, why don't somebody do that? It's like it's so simple. It's like I had many ideas like that later on I saw manifest in the collective. You know what I mean? And I followed my little inventor spirit. I remember like these small cards you can put in your thumbs to use ATMs and stuff like that. That was something I was in the process of developing many years ago, and then COVID came and now they're everywhere, and it's just I was not in a position to take it from the drawing board to the next level. So many instances like that, and seeing things, and creating them or realigning with that, being in the quantum field, seeing how that will look and how that will benefit and how, more in a practical kind of fun way,
Yes.
It's just interesting,
And so, many more people are beginning to basically have the same things occur to them that have occurred to you, just not at the same time in the linear timeline, right? I mean, many of us in this community can relate to the things that you're talking about, the soul retrievals, the DNA changing, the psychic abilities and the higher sensitivities kicking in, especially now. It seems to be really on blast this year. I'm interested to hear where do you think we're at in the collective fold? 2025 seems like it's a whole different ball game now. It feels like there's, although, on the movie script, the distortion's getting louder, but the field itself seems to be going with us rather than against us now. What are your thoughts on where we're at and where we're going?
If you don't mind, I'm going to close my eyes because I do a lot of my channeling, with my eyes closed. I can see so much more and feel so much more. So the answer to your question is that the unification codes are really coming in strongly now. That's what I'm feeling personally and see with clients and see in the collective at the moment. So there's a huge transitioning happening, like a template wipe, so to speak. There's many of them along the way, but this is such a big one, and obviously this month of September, October, the ending of this year, the 9-year, and we have 999 codes today. We got new moon, we got eclipse. There's just so much energy shifting that individually our bodies are, essence, a ship, right? So the brighter we shine, the higher we vibrate and higher our frequency, the more access we gain as well. But then also the sooner or the faster then we transform into a higher version of that, and we can go to higher realms, so to speak, gain more access to the divine blueprint, our DNA, our lineage, and access parts of us that before we communicated with as being up there or outside of ourselves. So deeper and deeper integration and transformation of that embodiment phase I'm feeling. So the unity codes that's coming in right now, I feel it personally, and I see it in people too, like people making better choices is really taking responsibility, prioritizing one's own journey. So I see there's a trend, there's a client I had earlier today and another one yesterday, just an example of them, how I can just really tell from working with them in the past to now, like they really got their stuff together. It's really beautiful to see how there's a maturity in that. It's like accessing higher frequency versions of oneself, So that's what I'm seeing in the collective at the moment. So there's a lot of collapsing, there's a lot of clearing, there's a lot of conscious participation where people are not just allowing the unconscious programming to dictate what's going to happen next. So there's a empowerment, the sovereign being part, and more so with the unity codes too, is that everybody, myself included, like for the most part of our journey, we operated as an individual, then observing the world, right? So these unity codes coming in right now, I feel there's expansion. There's a in the quantum field where we are connecting with mostly the the closest group, but then even beyond that, as being an aspect of ourselves. So again, telepathy, telepathic frequencies are coming in line so we can feel. So we're not operating and seeing the world so much through that individual point of view anymore. It's like more seeing it from a collective, omnidirectional, multidimensional point of view. And that's a little confusing at first because it's like we're so used to, let's say, meditating that we can just clear everything and then just like, stay in our lane, so to speak. Of course, when we do fully clear, then we just channel the higher aspects coming in. But I feel like now in the collective, in the physical, there's a shift happening there that we can really feel the other aspects of ourselves much more. Not just connecting like from point A to point B, but actually feel that this is also an aspect of me, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I believe it's a life review in form,
Yes.
in a life review. I mean, I wasn't in a coma for 10 days, but I've had a couple of out of bodies or those types of, and I've heard many people's stories about their near deaths and the life review that you have, where you can feel everything in the reflections, the mirrors of of the impression in the energetic field of your thoughts, words, and actions, regardless of what your intention was. Because obviously they have a different set of lenses, and you can have one intention, well-intended, purely intended, and it affects someone else just because of their life experience in a not so comfortable way, maybe. So we learn these things. I think true empathy is coming on board now.
Yes.
One of the things that I've noticed really throughout last year, my guides, my team, whatever you want to call it, source, told me that the 12-year period that ended from the 2012 Mayan date to this past winter solstice was kind of like the old and the new began shortly thereafter. And I saw it, and I think a lot of people have seen it and felt it. But one of the things I've noticed, you hear the saying that you can't take anything with you from the old construct, the old paradigm. And I've seen a lot of people, including me, everything gets deconstructed. And it's still continuing to, people talk about shedding. It's the identities, even the identities that we picked up to assist us and facilitate our awakening. So I'm watching this happen, and it's interesting. Like you said, it's a bit challenging trying to get used to what seems to be a more natural nature, or is our natural nature. And there's so many things involved. But it feels like, and I'd like to hear what your thoughts are. It feels like that it's bigger than all of us, so to speak, and it's happening anyway. And let go or be dragged, and that's really the universe putting a big mirror in front of our face, and acting quicker and quicker in regards to misalignments or conscious misalignments, or ignoring the signals and the nudges and the pushes. But how do you feel about that? Do you feel like that this is a situation where everyone's going to see the light, so to speak? Or do you see it being like two earths splitting, that narrative that you hear a lot about over the years? What are your thoughts on it?
Well, good question, and both is true, I feel. But point being is that I love the analogy you mentioned with the reflection too. People are now more and more conscious of where they're coming from. If they're coming from the unconscious, more human aspect, fear-based, or if they're coming from the higher self. So they have access to both. So there's a conscious choice involved, and that's why I'm saying both is true. Some will choose to still go the other direction, and there's no judgment there. if somebody have decided to have that kind of experience. And that's really the foundation of what's going on right now too, is that empathy, like you mentioned, but also not judging everybody, because if we judge something at the outside, that's the reflection as well. It's something that exists within us, so it's coming up instantly, and we will, is that either 4x4 or some kind of physical manifestation of that, you know what I mean? So people, we can't fool ourselves, you know what I mean? I mean, we have fooled ourselves for such a long time by being in the human body and not having access, but now having access and knowing what's right and what's wrong from a spiritual law perspective, that then it becomes a conscious choice. That's also what I'm seeing, is that it could still be a conscious choice going what some will consider the wrong way, but that for that soul's expansion, see what I'm saying? And it's simply like, that's what I feel like the worlds are separating. But it's not about one is right and one is wrong, because that would be defeating the purpose, right? It's like it's all part of the bigger picture, if that makes sense. And obviously the light couldn't operate without the dark, so
Yeah.
we coming in now to be the conscious creator, source energy being channeled through us, and the way we are navigating our journey, being at service, and being way showers, being anchors of light, so forth, we then gently see how that expands, and how we, through our actions, through our presence, through our service, we are making a difference, and so there's a collective mission and there's an individual's mission, but those two are now coming closer together. Most importantly is like releasing any kind of separation, any duality, because that's what kept us in a fragmented consciousness or state of mind, and again, somebody might benefit from having that experience, and there's no judgment, like that's really what it comes down to, is like a leaving one behind and stepping into the other, like being crystal clear, why am I here, and then following that thread, and the majority of who's here right now is going into the light, because we've been preparing for this for eons, for many, many lifetimes, preparing ourselves, and this is the graduation stage, so to speak, in my opinion, and where, I mean, it happened before. There's been Atlantis, there's been Lemuria, there's been other examples of this, but this one is different, you know what I mean? It's the time it's happening within 20, 30 years versus 300 years, like other star brothers and sisters, the way they went through it, that transformation, that ascension, we are doing it so fast, and that is not for the weak of heart, like it's for the ones who's been preparing for this and who's ready for this, so I think that's magical just in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I had this conversation yesterday with another guest, and the whole idea of a mission can even be an over-identification, an attachment, and I think the thing that reminds me of it, the conversation yesterday, is because I said the same thing. I said, some people are going to choose to go this way, and some people are going to choose to go that way. And the ones that choose to go or remain, let's just say remain in the paradigm that others are transforming out of, is a choice from the soul. It has to be respected. Who do we think we are? You know what I mean? I mean, it's from that perspective. I mean, that's to me what is occurring with this whole embodiment. It's not just the multi-dimensionality, it's the multi-human dimensionality, because we've had many masks, we've had many identities. So it's really getting to know who we are, and some people, again, we choose the basic template of our soul path in cooperation and collaboration with our soul families, the players in our lives. But I do agree with you. This is the big kahuna. We've never done anything like this before, and it is graduation time, and I feel like it's moving extremely fast now. Like I feel like it's going to be I mean, and I know that you never get there. It's always an ing at the end, but I really feel like a huge enough shift or huge enough expansion of consciousness between now and then, like say the next year and a half, 2 years, that it's going to be very, very obvious that there are two camps on the earth. And that's going to be interesting to see what happens when the energetics hit that point in such a physical dense environment. Like, what are the possibilities? One of the things I've noticed too, and it's easy because we can see things in others, and we know, we've learned that obviously it's being presented to me, it's not about the other person. However, one of the things that I can see, which I'm sure is in me too, is that you can have unconscious programming. We could get into, certain specifics, but I don't think we need to. But I mean, programming that obviously creates an unconsciousness in regards to things like, say, lack of empathy, unbeknownst to the holder, let's just say. But at the same time, they're tapped in, to their multidimensional aspects. They're, done soul retrievals. They've got certain psychic abilities. So it's almost like the split is happening inside of us. You know what I mean? Like the shedding of the human is exposing what the real human is meant to be, or can be, or spirit flesh, or however you want to put it. And then of course the soul, which kind of contains all the multidimensionality. So it's almost like they're splitting, but they're partners. You know what I mean? It's like the more that we become aware of what it is to be in the living flesh, a divine human being, like you were saying at the beginning, the more your abilities get turned on, the more you illuminate. And, I think it's going to be an interesting thing to see, because it does look obvious that there are two camps forming. I don't think the Earth's going to split off into two Earths. Maybe, who knows what happens? I don't know. But it seems to be important that we're having this experience side by side with these people, and I guess you could say with ourselves. But I don't know. Do you have any idea in regard to there's so many narratives out there, narratives of star family landing in ships, narratives of, family coming out from the inner earth, elementals coming into our visible field, and other things. I know for myself, there seems to be quite a bit of an uptick in the sensitivities and psychic abilities this summer, and they don't seem to be slowing down, including the telepathies and the synchronicities and so on. We really haven't slowed down since, I'll just pick 2012, but like we really haven't slowed down, all these years, especially since COVID hit. Seems like every month is bigger than the previous month, and time is moving faster and such. But with this trajectory, do, do you feel like, number one, that it's within our reach to be demonstrating what we once thought was supernatural abilities, say teleporting, and to be operating less and less verbally, with straight telepathy as we have in some of our previous incarnations? Do you think that that's within our reach? And do you feel that it's something that could happen, say within the next year and a half or 2 years? And I don't mean everybody. I just mean that enough people are doing it that people begin to take notice. Do you feel like that's possible?
Great questions. There was many questions there. Yes, I think it is possible within the next year and a half, even prior, earlier than that, in that time frame. What I'm seeing is too, when you were describing and you were speaking, like with the Galactic, integration, there's aspects of us. I have many aspects in the Taurus, and then Andromedan and Syrian, Lyman, so forth, aspects of me and you and everybody who lives in higher consciousness, because and assisting us in our ascension journey, where we at right now. So the way I'm seeing it too is like the general perception is that, oh, ships are going to come in and, you know, we're going to see them, but they're going to be separate from us. There is some truth to that, but the way I'm seeing it actually, how people are going to be surprised the most, especially because there's organic beings and there's inorganic beings. So there's people who are connected, there's alive, there's on, so to speak, tapped in, tapped on. We will integrate, like we are integrating our other aspects, like angelic aspects, you know, ascended master aspects, you know, and galactic aspects. So the way I'm seeing it is that let's visualize Syrian or Arcturian. We have an idea what that looks like because we've seen pictures, somebody who's channeled, and of course having direct experiences with them, you know, as we remote view or remote travel, you know, and which is wonderful, and channel them. So the way I see it actually is probably a surprise to many, is that because again, coming back to we are ships, so I see we're gonna interact with them as being a part of ourselves. So it's like they will be able to teleport into us, so to speak. But the important part here is they actually are part of us, so we are integrating this part. So the stuff we're afraid of on the outside is like we've been navigating it as you know, on a safe distance. You know what I mean? So it won't feel alien, or it won't feel you know, strange in any way, shape, or form, as we are in the same vibrational frequency, and we integrate this. So in the next year and a half, I feel because we're already in that, you know, when we are asleep and when we meditate, when we astral travel and do many other ways of traveling in the higher realms, you know, then we are already connecting that way. So that will become much more integrated. So it will be turned on and stay on. That's what I feel for many. And not everybody is going to be in the same pace, and it's not going to happen. There's a integration period. I feel like there will be way showers, like this dynamic, you know, that will be able to translate that and assist with the integration of that, and holding others' hands, you know, as that's happening. But I feel like as soon as, because we're already operating from high frequency bandwidth, you know, so it actually gets integrated really fast. So obviously it won't take as long as it used to in the past. It's like, I remember 15 years ago when I started really getting on my path, and then I feel like there was probably 12 years following that, maybe even 13 years, 14 years up till now. It was kind of like we were waiting, when is it going to happen, wait, you know. But now it's like we are in the ground zero, you know, and the 0 point. It's like things are happening instantly, and we can feel that, and we know that, and it's really like it's not a waiting game anymore, because the linear constructs are not existent, you know, unless we put them there. I believe they're still there, you know. So really, I feel like these interactions with our stars, brothers and sisters, you know, is really integration of aspects of ourselves, you know, as well. And that's going to be mind-blowing, I feel, for a lot, because we overcomplicate things. We think like, well, now we need to get trained, we need to, you know, get to know them, we need to make friends with them, you know, we need to figure out who's good, who's bad, you know, from a human point of view, right? But really, it's really like, it's a frequency bandwidth that we are activating within and integrating. So when we do that, then we gain instant access, and then we can also bilocate, we can quantum leap, we can do all these things that they can do right now.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely it does. Yeah, it reminds me of backwards, but I like your explanation. Like I recall in Lemuria that we had the physical body, but that we could leave the body and bilocate, I guess, you know, and have another experience, you know, which would be more of a traditional dimensional experience or something like that. But then we come back into the body to have the sensory experience that's so unique to the human being. So it's almost like backwards. Like the way you explain it is these aspects, which are us, are having the ability now to drop in, and then by virtue of that, we can go where they're at, you know, so to speak. So and I feel too that with the trajectory and the rate of acceleration that we've had, and that seems to be continuing. Yeah, definitely, this is going down soon. Like, I mean, it's already happening, but my question was more to it's going to be happening enough to where people are going to start to notice it. Kind of like uh, animals or children noticing your light, or even other people noticing your light. That's another thing too. It seems to me, and again, this would be from the evolving human perspective, who's a little bit of both, right? The soul, the human, and all that stuff. There's a whole new math here. There's a whole new geometry. There's a whole new color spectrum. Certainly a whole new method of connection and communication. You know, uh, and that's a little bit hard to read because we're not used to it, because we're so used to explaining things and of course doing things out of patterning and programming and unconsciousness. But uh, and I think the point you make about because for me it was May of 2011. But if you look back to those early years, 11 and 12 and 13 and 14 and 15, I mean, the cycles were still the same, but on a linear scale, things are happening much faster now. I mean, we get a blast and and you receive it, uh, you know, integrate it, transform it, and start to actualize it, and it could be in hours. And then you get hit with another one, which is interesting too, because back in those days, you might get one or two a month, but we're getting sometimes one or two a day, uh, every day. So it's interesting to, I think for me anyway, I tend to have had a more organic perspective, and I know a lot of people close to me have had more of a galactic perspective. Uh, but it's taken me a little while to learn this language. I can feel it, and that seems to be the driver. How does it feel? How do you feel? Uh, and that seems, which is more of an instinctive or an innate method of living, I guess. Um, but yeah, it's a bit strange. I just wonder um, how people will not be able to recognize that in a reflection or a mirror, another person. It would just seem that at some point, they talk about the tipping point, the hundredth monkey, and all that. I feel like we've already hit it. It just hasn't shown up in the physical yet. What are your thoughts?
I like the way you put that because the way I'm seeing it too is in the eye of the beholders, right? This is your universe, right? So you're reaching that manifestation or that embodiment. You reached it, so you're experiencing the world through the eyes of as the creator, so to speak. You might not be fully convinced of that yet, but so you're seeing everybody, and everybody would have to be in a vibrational alignment with that. If they're not, then they would fall off, and that's what we're seeing. And it's more like if you look at everything through the eyes of vibration and frequency, anything that's distorted is being skimmed off, is being cleared out. You know what I mean? It's coming to the surface. Not much different from old programs in our in our belief systems. Similar. It's being coming to the surface and it's being cleared, not overcomplicating it. You know what I mean? That's really what we're seeing in the collective as well at the moment. So as being in the creator's seat, and hearts being open, obviously where we are right now is a reflection of, for your point of view, is like where you are at on your journey, and me where I'm at my journey. So that's how I see the world, experience the world, and connect with the world, and what's possible because of what we're holding. You know what I mean? We wouldn't have this conversation unless we've been on our journey, and we asked those questions, and we kept pushing through all these challenges, as our physical bodies went through one hit after the other, but we knew that was the only way through, so we pushed our way through the void, and reached this point. So now being in a place where the hearts are wide open, so then we also see that be activated in the collective as well on a mass scale. and it's really growing so exponentially fast. You know, like it could go like this, but it's like it's just allowing the organic physical beings to catch up, you know, in the vibrational shift, you know. But we are starting to see. It's funny. I was in the bathroom this morning, sitting, and I was looking at the tiles on the floor, and I could just see them vibrate. So when everything holds a vibration, right? We are gently getting to that place where we can see everything is everything that is matter, everything that is materialized, you know, it holds a vibration. So we are starting to get into those dimensional frequencies where we start seeing everything as it has a certain code. You know what I mean? So we can actually, when we learn to manipulate or control or engage with these frequencies, that's when we can then move matter, we can change, we can go through walls, we can do all these things. I know that sounds far-fetched at the moment for most, but those abilities are coming online. So we're starting to see and feel, and it's through the heart space too. It's like it's not through the mind. The linear mind wouldn't be able to control or comprehend any of that. So it's really like we become that inner sun, you know, we become a source creator, you know, being channeled through us, you know, like we're fully embodying that, surrendering our physical vessel and our humanity, all of that, you know, giving our powers not away, but like we know there's a higher power that's wanting this, you know. So that's what I'm feeling with that. Have you experienced anything like that with seeing things in
Absolutely.
vibration?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just telling somebody this today.
Oh,
Yeah,
so,
no, it's been picking up, and I like your description of the vibrational aspect because I think we forget about that sometimes. I mean, we know that we can't see most of the visible light spectrum, or the light spectrum is invisible to us or has been, and there are other things, but no, everything seems to parallel. So if the telepathy's on the rise, then the physical reformation of the body's on the rise, and so on. But what I've experienced, and now it's been with more frequency, because I'm a avid lucid dreamer, and I get a lot of my information that way. And if in a lucid dream, there's a certain atmosphere, there's a certain vibration, there's more to the magic, I guess you would say. I would also maybe compare it to psilocybin, uh, and having that type of experience, not too over the top, but just where you can see the walls breathing, you can see the tiles moving, and you can see that everything is living, so to speak. But yeah, I feel like that sometimes that's the way it's going to kind of transition. It's going to become more and more of a lucid dream type of atmosphere, or a plant medicine type of atmosphere. Though those are, I say that both from the things I've been experiencing. This will probably go back about 5 years, and also just from the way it feels, like the memories of Lemuria or Atlantis or other lifetimes, even in human incarnations. Let's say 500 years ago, as an American Indian, a Native American, there was a different vibrational field then. There wasn't necessarily the level of distortion, and it's interesting too because you see it happening, and you also talked about, are you seeing things? Yeah, I was telling somebody this morning, it's flashes of light on my peripheral and flashes of shadow. And I think it was yesterday, it had to be a fairy, flew right by my head. Like there was nothing else there. I was inside and I saw the shape, but by the time I looked, it was, going around the corner. So yeah, I feel like that, and I've this summer, I've always, animals have always been attracted to me, but I've never like had an animal, and now I'm with these two cats, which are really souls, and I've never heard an animal speak words to me. So that's something that's changed. This particularly this female cat has spoken to me
cool.
literally, like an aspect would speak in your third eye. So yeah, there's definitely evidence of it, and then even like I've noticed too. I'd like to get your thoughts on this, and it's probably kind of a dumb question, but I noticed too in the last year and a half that a lot of people have been positioned around the planet, sometimes very quickly, uh, just different places by force or by flow. It's happened to me. I end up in a small little Mexican town, and I find myself walking in this different vibrational field, and it's crazy because the town is and harmonic. There's never hear people arguing, never seen a fight. Dogs run around without collars and they don't bother people and they're all over the streets and they put their trash on the corner and some Westerners say, "Oh, that's dirty and dirty," but I've never seen a broken glass in the streets here in a year. And so I'll be walking around and my soul will be going, "Look around, look where you're at. Everything's speaking to you. So is it the town or is it me?"
It's
You know,
you.
I know. And again, it's not, and you know what I mean by that. I mean, as the individual goes, so goes the collective. So it's like, as each one of us become more and more aware that our field is, so much bigger than we are. And the point you make about the heart based is absolute. Um, then we become impervious, like begets like. So we become impervious to those things that the distortion commanded over us as, when we were less conscious and less evolved. But yeah, what I was going to say is part of the reason that I feel like that, uh, well, I was told this summer, I had an abrupt change in my life. Actually, 111 days ago, I went to the beach last night and I go there every night just to sit, and relax and commune. And that first thing I heard was how many days, count the days, and it was 111. Then a bunch of miraculous stuff happened from there. But what I was told was that the thing about, positioning people around the planet, because this summer was all about the purification of fire, everyone's stuff coming up in one last preparation before, I guess you would say, we're needed in terms of holding ourselves in that column of light, anchoring and stabilizing these higher frequencies. Because as we're expanding individually and having these types of experiences, uh, the distortion is expanding in parallel. So it becomes louder, but we become more and more impervious to it because we know who we are, what we are, and what we're here doing. And then that hive mind kind of thing starts to kick in, and that's kind of what I was receiving. And again, this might be a little redundant, but have you heard or seen that there are many people moving around the world suddenly and positioning themselves? And do you feel like that there's any sense to that? Like, in other words, they're not afraid. Let's just say the bad actors are not afraid of us marching and parades and boycotts and protests. It's more of a fear of what's inevitable, and that's us understanding our frequency and vibration and resonance, and also our ability to co-create whatever we want to, and we're wising up. But it really feels like almost like not a standoff, but like the point where everything is exposed, which seems to be happening on the world level, and that also includes everything's exposed in regard to the truth of ourselves and the human race. But it feels like a showdown, I guess you would say. Some people call it a spiritual warfare. I never really get into that. For me, like you said, you can't have the light if you don't have the dark, and you can't have the dark if you don't have the light. And I've learned just as much from the dark as I have from the light. Um, but it feels like there's no time left. You know what I mean? Like it's inevitable. It's got to happen at some point. There's got to be an apex or a climax to this. Or do you feel that it's just going to feather in and keep feathering in the way it has?
I guess the answer to that question would be a yes, but what I'm seeing is the kind of like an overlay. So, you know what I mean? There's the sacred geometry, grid work, ley lines, but individually, asking, to answer your question about people being, moving around the world and being attracted to different grid point. I've seen in my own life the last 5-6 years at least, how I was moved around even more than I did before that time, and how, again, it's like you asked that question: is it me or is it outside source? But it's individually when we activate these grids and this sacred geometry within us. It's like a pyramid kind of structure. It's like a perfect frequency we hold and emanate. So then wherever you go, you anchor that, you activate that in the field, but you also experience that. So that's why you see everything seems to be in harmony, even though it used to be a really chaotic place, let's say. I've been moved around enough to see that within a couple of months I've been in a space, then it really cleared up. Or the nature just started to flourish, and things just got into alignment. And obviously it's seen through my eyes because that's the vibration, that's the frequency I am in. So that's coming back to the overlay too. It's like you mentioned too, then there's like true reality, so to speak. There's the demonstrations, there's, density being released, so to speak. So I see it as an overlay, depending where we are at individually, that's what we operate from, and also how we look at it. So if it's an overlay, it's just something artificial that's kind of put on top, and it's really not real. It's just simply trying to slow down what's going to happen anyway. You know what I mean? So, and it is accelerating. So that's that consciousness, or again, like conscious integration, when we allow ourselves to not be controlled by that, not being dictated by that, and not being limited by that. Then, and we're not pushing it away either. We can see that's dense energy that's in the process of clearing, like the certain things, certain vibrations, certain groups, have to go through a process, a cycle, or for that to clear, and it's almost like we have, with the chef in the kitchen, we have all these different things going, and it's like we have that pot going over there, it's reducing, the sauce, the whatever it is. This one over here is like we are making this beautiful pastry, we're making this. Like, so we have many things going at the same time, and we kind of like, we have an idea what's going on, and we got, it's under control, so to speak, because we know how to time it. So that's what I'm feeling like. That's what more and more I'm experiencing now, is that we don't freak out just because of one thing is not complete yet. We just kind of like, we see the bigger picture, and we know there is a perfect symmetry in all of it. So it's just a matter of time before the meal is done, where they all, like, timing is directed by you, and it's all going to be perfectly ready in time, if that makes sense.
Yes. And then I think another thing I've noticed, I'd love to hear your thoughts, is the relationship with shadow work now. It seems like something shifted. In the sense that as we were going through our evolution in developing that, that methodology of finding our shadows and coming to terms with them, embracing them, and so on, and transforming. But there seems to be, and that's an element that's there. I mean, as long as we're in this body, we're still subject to the human condition. So, I mean, I had something pop up, I think it was yesterday morning on a show, when a girl started talking about her story, and it brought back a memory. I'm like, what the hell? And I started crying. I'm like, what the hell? So, there's always going to be something. Yeah. But there seems to be kind of a beginning of co-creation and collaboration with the higher constructs, or let's say the embodied, without the baggage or the programming of the old paradigm. It feels, and maybe it's because of what I do, but that tends to be what I do, is like bring people together and put on productions and, have a festival or whatever. But it feels different now. It feels like, in other words, we used to say, what do you want? What do you desire? What is your picture of your perfect life, this house, this relationship, this, whatever. And for me, as the summers unfolded, it seems to be like, what you said at the beginning about, as you clear, and you become this channel, this conduit. It's a constant thing. And so then, yeah, you're walking around a town, and all of a sudden, like, wow, this town is like the greatest place I've ever lived, which is true, But then again, you go, oh, well, it's me. But there seems to be a relationship uh, with the energy that we carry and what manifests. But the manifest isn't like from the old definition. It's a natural progression. It's an unfoldment. It's an organic process. It's like we don't have to look for it. It's actually all around us or comes to us. Like, and I can just give you a quick example. But I had about 2 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had a show around that time, about a month ago. And from that point, not because of that show, but it was just that point. So it must have been, 20th of August in that neighborhood. And all of a sudden, over the next few days, these pieces in the form of people and ideas and, you know, different things all kind of showed up at the same time. And they were like, oh, well, this fits with that, and this fits with that, and that, and you know what I mean? And I knew because my soul was there, me, saying, hey, don't fall into the old, the old rat race paradigm and, oh, we got to do this and we got to do that. Just let it be. Let it just unfold naturally. So that's what I'm talking about. It's almost like, I want to say almost like an effortless kind of way of building versus hard work and sweat and, but just an effortless collaboration, most importantly, with the universal itself. So everything outside of you but these pieces are coming in and it's pretty cool. I'm not attaching to anything, but I can see the pieces. The stress of time is no longer there. And I feel like, the illusion of space is being diminished as well. Do you, some people call the fourth dimension time and space. Time's been doing some funny things these last few years. I feel like space is starting to do the same thing. What are your thoughts?
Kind of want to address something you said like
Yes.
a minute ago, because it's like we are the architects, our thoughts create, right? So, and as we're coming into becoming the conscious creators again in the quantum field, there is no time. So everything we see is something, yes, we did create, but from a human, living in time and in loops and cycles and so forth, then we went through that process for a number of years, for eons, so to speak, that experience, of the loops and the cycles, but we reached the ending point of those cycles. The same with reincarnation cycles, like in the quantum field, that also stops here right now. So then we have a blank canvas, so to speak. And being architects, master builders, and our thoughts, our frequencies, our sacred geometry, our connection, that brings through that divine blueprint. So yes, some of it is predetermined. It's all predetermined in that sense because we are everywhere all the time, right? From that perspective. But so it's like we vibrationally create everywhere we travel, everywhere we go. If we quantum leap, if we remote view, if we, doesn't matter, physically travel, daydream, any of that, like it's like we're so online that there's no limitations any longer. The old constructs, the old limitations, those cycles, those loops, they are not affecting us any longer. We are not believing in them. We're not vibrating that anymore. So it's not affecting us. It's not a threat anymore. It's not something that separates us or takes us down the challenging path, So I feel like that wraps it up pretty well. But it's like in the universe right now, and it goes beyond. It's like it's almost something that we really can't fully comprehend yet. Is that we're seeing this world, we're seeing this earth, this universe, But imagine that you can just simply just reach out and you can open up, like a curtain, like there's a whole other world behind that. You know what I mean? That is kind of what's happening. Like we're exiting this theater or this movie and coming back to something that's way bigger than that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
that's kind of
right. Yeah. That's, and actually I totally get what you're saying. Again, this happened two or three shows back, and I said, it kind of reminds me of the Truman Show. When the scenery, gets a crack in it, or the light falls from the. So there is something bigger, there's something much bigger behind it. And the other thing that you reminded me of too was what I've been getting is imagination. But again, like many words that were connotated a certain way from where we came from, they have a wider definition, a more multiversal definition. But that the power of our imagination, but not in the context of old, in the context of creation, like you're talking about. So that's been something that I've been hearing a lot lately. That, in other words, this is how we make it go. This is how we pedal the bike here. Is the power of that? Because that creativity that is part of that is not just for a piece of art. It's actually the way we live. It's a cooperative thing. It's creative. It's imaginative. It's obviously intuitive, and again, it's such a I don't want to say weird mix. It's a strange mix, which is probably the same word, because we're still finding out things about ourselves and reality and such that are not true, or that are not us, or that are not real. But at the same time, we're taking on more and more of these higher sensitivities, these experiences, and the continuity and the coherence with others. That's really going to shake this thing up, because it's one thing to do it within yourself. Like you said, when you were young, you didn't have anyone to talk to about it. And I tell you how many conversations I've had with people over these last few years, and they say, I didn't know there was anyone out there like me. I thought I was crazy, but we're not crazy anymore. I mean, so this is getting exciting. It really is. And
We
the other,
outgrew that container, so to speak. You know what I mean?
mm,
We
yeah,
talked about the Truman Show. Like
yeah,
that was made and created for having a certain soul experience.
right, exactly, exactly. And then we have this, and yeah, you could look at him as being the only character, right? Which essentially, okay. But you can also look at it, we have 8 billion characters, and everybody has their own template. And just like the universe, like if you look at some of the Renaissance men, the Swedenborg talked about, in his meditations, the 72, 144 levels of heaven and hell. These are neighborhoods, right? They make up the whole. I think some of that's going to maybe come into fold too, where we start to see like-minded groups kind of come together. Another thing that I see about the environment here, and I know it's not unique to just this place that I'm in, is that people allow people to do whatever they want. Nobody interferes with anybody. I'm walking down the street in the middle of the afternoon yesterday, and there's a young man just sleeping on a park bench. I mean, he's not drunk, he's not a drug addict. He just decided to take a nap in the middle of the afternoon on a park bench, and there people were just walking by him, and nobody bothers him. So I think that element where we start to, and that goes back to what you said at the start of the show, where you start to have this, we think of unity consciousness, and sometimes we get carried away maybe with the fluffy love and light part of it. It's actually an intelligence. It carries, like you said, probably beyond our comprehension. But literally, what I do to you, I do to me, right? And the other side of that is, what I know, and what I know, So imagine everybody knowing everything about each other, and put that in terms of knowledge or abilities to create, or I mean, this is literally beyond quantum, really. I mean, it's going from earthly and organic to light years. It's not even doesn't do it justice. It just doesn't do it justice. You mentioned one thing though about being able to walk through walls. And many of us have had, obviously had visitations and that type of thing. And, I've had a couple where I guess you would say transparent, not fully solid, but transparent holographic uh, figures would come into the room, right? And sometimes they would exit by just walking through the wall. And it reminded me of that when you said it, because I thought, well, yeah, you know what, we are a hologram, right? And that overlay, when you were talking about the overlay, I was like, okay, well, yeah, he's right, because it's almost like, yeah, we believe that in the solidity of this body. I mean, it's one thing to think this is only me, and then it's another thing to think, well, I've got this container that's holding my soul for this incarnation and experience, but this is still soul. This is still spirit, and somehow or another, we tricked ourselves. And I think you said this a minute ago in your own way, but like, who better to trick you than yourself? I mean, who would be able to come up with the right plan to keep you from like what happened to you when you had your wake ups and your near death, and you knew that you were locked out of certain things. I think a lot of us have that conversation. I know I've had it a lot. My soul just come in and say, look, can't tell you any more than you know, because it'll ruin the whole thing. Right. So, yeah. So maybe even we get to a point where, we have a greater and greater appreciation for our efforts and our incarnations, and the human aspect of us is no longer the redheaded stepchild, but has an equal seat at the round table of spirituality, or our personal monad, or however you want to put it. I mean, it's a remarkable experience and experiment, and maybe we should start giving ourselves some credit, and that's probably going to have a direct effect on our abilities as well, because our heart will expand for ourselves, which I guess ultimately is what's happening for each of us and for the human race.
Absolutely. The heart expansion we are experiencing now, and how we see more and more people are now in a similar frequency to us, or on the path or awakening, so forth. That's only is a reflection of us, right? Is our field, and is an aspect of us, like you mentioned, so that's the reason why we're seeing it, because we are now in a center state where we reconnect with all these aspects as being a part of us. We created them, like we put them there, like it's all our creation, so we start to experiencing that again, and also being in unity consciousness as it's happening. Then it's not them versus me, there's no right and wrong. It's just like it's all beautiful, it's all parts of me, just spread out in a million different pieces, or 8 billion different pieces, and that's, again, when we finesse that frequency and that embodiment within, then we are the limitations, or we are the what slows down the process as well, for us to see that on a global scale. You know what I mean? So the more momentum we gain, the more coherent we become, more integrated we become, the faster we are able to then expand our energy field that wide, and that big, and then one of a sudden we see a whole earth, a whole new earth, in that frequency, in that vibration, and we can then say, of course, and there's infinite versions of that. So it's like we are learning to tune our frequency, we're learning to maintain that frequency, so we can experience that, and maintain that and hold that, and then make that our life, moving forward, or become our new canvas, our new mission, whatever we choose to do with that is really up to us, I think most have a really hard time comprehending that too, because we've been schooled and we've been experiencing life as a challenge or a test or a script from point A to point B, but we are the creators, so we created all of that too, as we're connecting with that,
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Yeah, I think part of yeah, because I've always struggled with yeah, they're all narratives. All the stories are narratives, and having that discussion with people. No, there's a spiritual war, or There's, bad guys and good guys. And, and I try to say, well, but we're souls, and you're either in on that or you're not. And if you're in on that, it's kind of an all or nothing proposition as time goes by, because it becomes very painful if you deny your divinity. And because you're going to be overpowered, which is going to be your choice, but you're going to see it as something outside of you that's not giving you a choice, and et cetera, et cetera. We exercise free will to come here, and we'll remember that. And at some point, like I said, I know we're going to have a greater reverence for ourselves. I mean, I do, but I'm probably the human's biggest cheerleader. But yeah, I mean, we've done amazing things, and for to consider what we've done even in the last 12, 13 years on a personal level, and the abilities and sensitivities that have come on board, and the miraculous divine episodes that we've had, we still can fall into doubt. We can still have these little moments of, but it feels like we're shaking it off. It feels like it's starting to feel really good. It really is. And I'm excited about it. I'm ready to continue getting younger. And I think we're in for some really miraculous things coming very soon. And then of course we've got the children. The children are carrying, frequencies, and the lack of conditioning in compared to us. But we can't underestimate them. They're souls, and they're very, very high frequency souls. So that's going to have an effect on the grid itself. But so how can people get in touch with you? What type of sessions do you do, and anything else you might be getting into, or if you have something coming up or anything like that?
I do a lot of shows like this. I do a monthly thing called Wings of Wisdom with a beautiful soul sister in Canada, and so reach people that way. I have a website, channelingarchangel.com, and I work in a store here in Midland once or twice a week at the moment. Then I do sessions online the other days via Zoom or phone. So I'm staying pretty busy, which is wonderful. And meeting people where they're at. Everybody's in a different phase of their ascension journey, even tapping into it. But I noticed, obviously my vibration attract people who are ready. So I don't feel like I have to convince people of anything. They're already kind of agreeing with my frequency and
right.
So it's healing. It's addressing what's going on. I'm good at kind of tapping into how is this, affecting you on a daily basis, and what can we do, and give guidance, to look at it from a higher perspective, knowing how to, assist with the tools to collapse and activate and shift, pivot, taking your powers back. And I do mentorships as well. I work with people doing mentorships, longer programs, where I just either meet them twice a week or weekly for 3 months or longer. Some I work with for years, it really, there's no limits to where it can go. I mean, the individual, as long as they can follow, then there's no limits to how far it can go. So, and I just started doing in person again lately, like a couple months ago here in Midland. I actually really enjoyed it again, because after COVID, I just stayed offline. I just everything on Zoom, and phone. Right. So the hands-on meeting with people, I actually really enjoy doing that again at the moment. So it's kind of like a shift, you're reaching people, and then of course Texas people are wonderful and very open to take the guidance, and
Wow.
and follow their heart, I feel, so
That's amazing. Midland, Texas. I never would have thought. I've never even thought in that context. Midland, Amarillo.
You have to think of it this way too. If there's dense energy somewhere, right, it's like unattractive, then it's like, that's where you need to be,
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And just because I've been in other parts of Texas and other parts of the world, it looks a bit different there from the Panhandle. And so you have this prejudgment basically. But no, I've had some I've had some really good experiences, some powerful experiences up in the Panhandle. Uh, as I've been passing through and stopping off from time to time. There's some strong energy up there, but I guess there's strong energy everywhere. When you think about it. Well, I really appreciate it, you coming on and being so open. And I'd love to run into you again. Maybe we will. I'll be traveling in probably as soon as the 1st of December. And so, yeah, I like to stop and meet people that I've met online. I've been doing it for years, and if you're still up there, I would pass through there if I'm
Okay,
driving. Yeah,
please
so
stop by.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that'd be great. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing space with us. I hope to see you again on this side and certainly on the other side, and hopefully both. You know, and I wish you the very best. And thank you so much for your service to humanity.
my pleasure. Thank you. You're doing a great job too. I
All
look
right. Well,
forward to
you
meeting
take
again.
care, and thank you, Susan, for introducing us, and maybe we'll get together again.